Long drive and deep dive into the European full self-driving beta software in my Tesla Model 3. In this mega episode, we take a drive in my Tesla Model 3 on the Polish countryside with our European version of the full self-driving Autopilot and see what is working and what flaws there is to the software. The full self-driving feature is far from ready. It's more like a driving assistance here in Europe. We have to enable all the beta features, and we did that in a previous episode, so I highly recommend you to watch that before watching this episode to understand what is happening with the car. But before we hit the roads, we need to understand some of the traffic rules in Poland, especially regarding the speed limits. That is kind of confusing, at least for a foreigner. First of all, there is general speed limits inside an urban area and outside an urban area. When you are in an urban area, the general speed limit for a standard motor vehicle is 50 kilometers per hour. That's approximately 31 miles per hour. And outside in the countryside, where no houses is around, it's 90 kilometers per hour, and that's approximately 56 miles per hour. This applies to a standard normal 2-lane road. If there is 4 lanes or a motorway, there is other speed limits. The problem here is to determine what zone you are in. Since the urban zones can stretch for very long distance, and the signs telling the status of the road is seldom repeated. Since Poland has a population of 38 million people, even the countryside contains of lots of houses, small villages and towns that are quite close to each other, making the stretches of 90 zones few and short in between. And it's really not clear where the different zone starts and ends. There is this European universal sign telling when the suburban area starts and another sign when it ends. But in many places the signs are missing or hidden by vegetation, and this doesn't make it more easy for the driver to know in what zone you're located. On top of that, there is exceptions from the general rule, and they are displayed as standard speed signs showing the allowed speed, and that overrules the general speed limit. But how far is this exception speed limit valid before the standardized speed limit is valid again? The general rule is that it's valid until the next crossing, and that can be a crossing that is very small and you hardly pay attention to it. And it's even more difficult for the Autopilot in my Tesla to understand. The Autopilot likes to keep the temporary speed longer, which makes it tricky to only depend and drive with the Autopilot. There is also speed ending signs that is being displayed when the temporary speed is not valid anymore and there is no crossing. But in this case, you have to remember if you were in an urban zone or not in order to continue drive the legal speed. It's not obvious everywhere, and the Autopilot is not always recognize these signs. All of this makes the respect for the speed limit in Poland very low, and especially in small village out in the countryside where there is few houses in between. Here people drive like it was outside an urban speed zone, even if the urban speed sign was displayed. So let's start to drive now with my Tesla Model 3 using the Autopilot as much as possible, using version 2021.4.18.11. We start the drive driving manually here out in the fields, and we are arriving to a small village. An urban zone starts and we have to reduce the speed to 50 kilometers per hour. Now I engage the autopilot and let the car drive the speed limit. Here is the sign telling that we are leaving the urban area and can drive 90 kilometers per hour again. So I adjust the target speed for the autopilot with the knob in the steering wheel, and the car accelerates to 90 kilometers per hour. Here, another urban sign with 50 kilometers speed limit is coming up, and this time I press the brake, so the autopilot is disengaged. This village is very small, so the 50 zone is very short, almost ridiculous short. This is why many drivers ignore to reduce the speed at all when passing the village. If I let the speed be reduced automatically by the autopilot, it will not do that until I'm passing the sign. So in this case I need to take over manually and reduce the speed before arriving to the village sign. Now we are arriving to a small city. Again, I reduce the speed before the urban sign, and this time with a knob in the steering wheel. Here is a temporary speed reduction to 40 kilometers per hour. It ends here at the crossing, but the car continues to believe that it's 40, even if I passed the crossing. Okay, here is a roundabout, and the autopilot freaks out, like it is doing in all European roundabouts. trying to engage the autopilot again, but what is happening? The lines on the road was not sufficient, so I got this error. Trying again, where the lines is clearer, it works fine. On this straight road, it's attempting to drive a little bit faster, leaving the town. But the autopilot is keeping to the speed limit. Who is standing there? Ah, it's a police that is making a speed control. Happy I didn't drive faster and was using the autopilot, which is keeping to the speed limit. As you can see, we left almost the city, but still this is considered to be an urban speed zone. So we passed the last house and finally we can drive faster. Now I can accelerate by using the accelerator pedal, but still the target speed is 50, so I can adjust that by pressing the speed limit icon on the screen, and the target speed will be updated. And also the autopilot is adjusting the actual speed automatically. Another village and another urban sign, meaning that I have to reduce the speed to 50 kilometers per hour again. See, this Polish driver don't think that this is an urban speed zone, and take me over and disappear on the horizon. Urban speed zone is over and I can increase the speed again, but the car don't let me do it until I well past the sign. Next village, and reduction of the speed again. And again, I can increase the speed. Look here, the bridge only allows vehicles up to 16 tons. The car reads this as a speed sign of 70 kilometers per hour and starts to reduce the speed. So here I'm driving 70 kilometers per hour on a 90 road just because the Autopilot read the sign for weight limitation as a speed sign. But here we pass a crossing and the Autopilot decides that we can drive 90 kilometers per hour again. Here is a real 70 kilometers per hour speed sign, and then it's a 50 and we are approaching a stop sign. The car is not sure what is in front of it. Look there, first it thinks it's a traffic light. But when we come closer, it realized that this is a stop sign. The car sees the line on the road and stops at the line, not at a stop sign like I previously experienced. Checking that there is no car coming, confirming that I can continue by pushing the right spoke down. And see, the car continues automatically through the crossing. Note how the car still thinks that it's 50 kilometers per hour, even if I pass the crossing. The Autopilot don't allow me to increase the speed unless I do not use the accelerator. Now the very patient drivers behind me got enough and starts to take me over. Okay, I turned around and it's approaching the same crossing from the other side. This crossing is accidental and probably there has been people not surviving passing this crossing. This is the reason why the stop signs are so well marked. Now the car stops at the stop sign, not at the stop line. So I have to take over and stop again to look for any traffic before I go. This is a really bumpy road. This is a really old road. And there was many roads looking like this 10 to 15 years ago in Poland. I get the feeling that it was built during the Polish communist era and was not maintained or rebuilt since then. So I decide to not drive so fast as the speed allow, but the Autopilot is handling the road fine anyway. Here we are coming to a village again and a 50 zone. But driving 50 on this road is not popular by my fellow co-drivers behind me there. Look how they are taking me over and don't care about the speed limit and do it even if the lines in the road telling that it's not allowed. The 50 zone is over and I can increase the speed again. But as you can see, this is just for a short while before I coming to the next 50 zone. Okay, a turn coming up. and Autopilot decides to hand over the car to me. I don't know if it was because I was moving the steering wheel too hard or the Autopilot couldn't handle the turn. Finally, this bumpy road ends and we are driving on a refurbished road. Oh, so nice. But what is happening here? Without any reason, no sign, the car decides that the speed limit is only 40 kilometers per hour. Now, when the road is much better. According to me, this is an urban 50 zone, so I should drive 50, not 40 kilometers per hour. Finally, we are coming to the end of this urban zone, and I can increase the speed to 90. But what is happening? Now the car thinks it's 40 again. So, let's press the accelerator to not do any danger to other drivers, and I will take over driving myself for a little while. Look, now for no reason at all the car decided to change back to the accurate speed again of 90 kilometers per hour. Another urban sign is coming up. Again, the Autopilot believes that the speed limit is 40 kilometers per hour. I will be using the accelerator to keep to the speed of 50 kilometers per hour. That is the accurate speed that you can drive on this stretch, at least according to me. Look at that white car, how it's parked. I don't trust the Autopilot. Maybe it will panic brake. And I don't want that. Let's disengage the Autopilot and take over manually. to pass the car with a safe distance. See, now the autopilot again shows the correct speed. Okay, coming in a 19 zone again. Here the speed of 90 kilometers per hour is a little bit too high according to my opinion, with this downhill and twist coming up. This is a little bit bigger city, and 50 kilometers per hour is almost feels too fast to drive here. Turning on the autopilot again. What is this? A crossing for pedestrians with a yellow blinking light above. The autopilot believes that this is a traffic light and it's stopping, showing the red line. Okay, press the accelerator and then the autopilot starts driving again. Oh, good. Do you see the temporary sign there to the right? It has some kind of yellow blinking light on top of it, and the autopilot believes that this is a traffic light and decides to stop. Oh, now, when we came closer, it changed its mind. Good. Still, this is an urban speed limit zone, even if it feels that we have left the town. Oh, now the 50 zone is over. But here the speed is reduced to 70 kilometers per hour by this sign, and the autopilot, well, it works, catching it correctly. Oops! We are coming to a roadwork with a traffic light. How will the autopilot handle this? Okay, the car continues straight. I don't feel comfortable with strange maneuvers, so I take over and drive manually. So we are back on the right side of the road again, and I can enable the autopilot. See, here the autopilot was reading the speed limit sign that gave me possibility to increase the speed again to 90 kilometers per hour. Not bad. And another urban 50 zone is coming up. Another blinking warning sign above a pedestrian crossing again, and the autopilot interprets it as a traffic light, and the car slows down. I'm more prepared now, so quickly uses the right lever to tell the car that it can pass since there is no one crossing. I wonder if this is a correct behavior or if this is considered as a bug. What do you think? Leaving the city again, back to 90 kilometers per hour. Here another temporary reduced speed to 70 and the car reads it correct. I started to reduce the speed before, but I was not fast enough. So passing the speed sign, the car also finalized the reduce down to 70 kilometers per hour. What happens here? A stop sign is picked up from this awkward side crossing by the autopilot and the car decides to stop in the middle of the road. Okay, end of the 70 kilometers per hour speed limit. Let's see if the autopilot will increase the speed automatically. No. Okay, let's press the accelerator a little bit. No, now an urban zone is coming up again. Okay, let's increase the speed again, and we will see for how long. Too hard on the steering wheel there, so the autopilot was disengaged. Let's turn it on again. Here is a bike. What will happen now? Okay, the autopilot is nicely placing the car here behind the bike. Okay, I have to act. This is barely legal, right? Crossing the full line like this, but for a bicycle it must be okay, or? Let's go back to 90 kilometers per hour. Not so fast. Here is the 70 sign. Look, there is 2 blinking lights above the pedestrian crossing, and the car don't believe that this is a traffic light. Cool. Okay, next roadwork coming up. I guess it will be the same thing with Autopilot, that it cannot handle this. Let's see. Driving straight. No, the car cannot handle this. I have to take over and drive through the roadwork manually. I don't dare turning on the autopilot here. If the car starts drive bananas with the line in the middle and the cones to the right so close to it. I have no idea what the speed limit is now. The lines are not very well marked here, so this is why turning on the autopilot failed. Okay, another 70 kilometers per hour speed limit. Passing the crossing and an end sign, but Autopilot doesn't allow me to increase the speed. Oh, now I can do it. "50 kilometers per hour, again, urban zone. Going too fast, let's use the brake." See, they are repeating the urban sign when we are coming to the next village. Okay, the urban zone ends here, so I can drive 90, but I'm approaching this large crossing. That's somewhat strange, in my opinion, increasing the speed in this crossing where it really could be danger and risk of collision. So now the autopilot is reducing the speed because the car in front of me is not driving so fast. The adaptive cruise control is in action. Yeah! Okay, here is an automatic speed radar control coming up, and of course everyone is keeping to the speed limit. Okay, another bike is slowing down the traffic. I have to intervene and disengage the autopilot to pass the bike safely. Okay, the ending of urban zone, but look here, the speed limit is only 70 kilometers per hour. We passed the crossing and there was no new speed sign, so the allowed speed should be 90 kilometers per hour again, right? But the car still thinks it's 70 kilometers per hour, and I'm not allowed to drive faster with Autopilot. Finally, I can raise the speed again to 90 kilometers per hour. Urban zone again, and a roundabout is coming up. I guess that the same thing will happen here, like in all roundabouts. Let's see. Okay, the Autopilot is braking since it sees the car in front that is rolling slowly. But what is happening now? No, the Autopilot failed, prompting me taking over the car immediately, like I did. Okay, speed reduction again to 70 kilometers per hour, and another roadwork coming up. This time it's the opposite path of the road that is closed. So this time it might work to use the Autopilot going through the roadwork. We will see. Okay, I give the accept for the car to pass through the traffic light. Yeah, it works, even if this part of the road is really bad. The car still thinks it's 40 kilometers per hour. Yeah, we passed the sign that said it's 40 kilometers, but we also passed a crossing. So it should be the urban zone speed that is 50 kilometers per hour that is valid right now, or I think so anyway, so I use the accelerator to go 50 kilometers per hour instead of the 40 kilometers per hour that the autopilot proposed and should have been forcing me to drive if I didn't intervene. Okay, urban zone ends and 70 until next crossing. Past the crossing, but still the autopilot believes it's 70 kilometers per hour. Let's increase the speed using the accelerator. Now, finally, the car speed limit indicator changed to 90 kilometers per hour. A speed reduction for the pedestrian crossing works fine. And here the end sign of the temporary speed reduction. This time the car speed limit indicator reacted quite fast, but also this time the car saw it and displayed it in the visualization. Okay, another urban sign speed zone coming up. A traffic light, so I confirm it so the car can pass without stopping. And that ends today's drive with the Autopilot in my Tesla Model 3. Now I have tested the Autopilot in 2 European countries, and it's far from being perfect. But on the other hand, it never intended to be. This is just a beta software. But getting a system to work so it will be truly full self-driving all over the world is a huge task, especially when the traffic rules varies so much between different countries. Just see how different they are in those 2 European countries that I tried out so far. It will be interesting to see how Tesla will solve this issue and develop the software so it can handle all variants around the world. Is it possible? Maybe it will only be truly full self-driving in the US. Please also do subscribe to my channel and hit the small notification bell, and then you will not miss any of my future episodes. If you're planning to buy a Tesla, you can use my referral link that you will find in the description of this video. Until next time, have a great life.